Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Today we are going to talk about education, the importance of it, and so many other things. I have Marsha Familaro Enright in the house, and I'm excited because, as you know, you've been listening to my podcast, I love education. As a former college director and somebody who's opened colleges, Marsha is doing that now. So without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
I live in Chicago. I've been working in education since 1990 when I opened a Montessori elementary school, and I ran that for many years. Then I opened a summer program for young adults because that was my own area of teaching interest, and that was so transformative for them that I kept it going for 15 years. This will be our 16th year. And that has now grown into a full-length program for a college, which we're working to open next September 26th.
Congratulations. That is not something to take lightly. That's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I get bored very easily, so it keeps me busy.
I think that is just the nature of being an entrepreneur because there's always, something else that we can be doing. So how
Mhm.
did you get into education? How did you start?
When I was a child, I loved school, and I realized that a lot of the other kids around me were very frustrated with their learning. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want that for my own children when I grow up. So what kind of school should I put them into? And when I was about 20, I read about the Montessori method, and I thought, this looks really good. This looks like exactly what I'm looking for. So I educated myself. I read everything I could about it. I visited Montessori schools, and then I put my oldest child into a local Montessori children's house, which is what other people call a preschool. And I put my other children in there. And then when he was about to go to elementary school, I found a local Montessori elementary school to put him in. But then that school had to move, and they were moving somewhere else. So I turned to the other people that I had gotten to know during that time, and I said, "Do you want to start our own school?" And we had a meeting about it in March of 1990, and we opened the school in September with 17 children. And from there, we grew it. I ran it for about 27 years. And then during that time, I started this a summer program. So that's how I got into education. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. It's so much work, but it is so rewarding as well. And I love that you've started this school. And with the college that you're starting, what are some of the courses you're going to be teaching?
Well, it's uniquely designed. It's applying Montessori principles to the young adult level of development. In case your audience doesn't know, the Montessori system is quite different than traditional schooling. It was started by the first woman doctor in Italy, and she has a very interesting story. She was working in what was called an orthophrenic clinic with children that had trouble learning, that were autistic, and she noticed that they spent a lot of time playing with their food. And she thought, well, why was that? And then she realized it was because they were in such a deficient environment, without nothing else to do, that was their sensory input. So she decided she was going to make things better, and she studied all the educational theorists of the previous 200 years and came up with some special materials for the children to work with. And they did so well learning with these materials that they passed the state exam for normal children.
Mhm.
And she got instant fame from this. Well, she was sort of famous already by being the first woman doctor in Italy. And she got so famous from this, everyone was raving about this. And she was thinking, well, what are normal children learning if these children that are having so much difficulty can pass the state exam? And subsequently, she started a program in um, a small school of her own using her ideas, which were very different, very concerned about what does a child need at X stage of learning, at Y stage of learning. So little children between the ages of 0 and 6, they need a lot of sensory motor work. And if you want them to learn anything like reading or writing, it has to be incorporated into some real thing in order to help them learn how to do it. And then what does a child that's 6 to 9 year old, 9 to 12 year old, 12 to 15 year old, what does a student who's a young adult, what do they need to learn? What do they need to prepare themselves for their lives ahead of them? And so we're bringing that up to the college level, being very focused on what kind of environment should a young adult have in order to become an independent and self-responsible individual. Since if you're going to thrive in life, that's the best way to do it. Become independent, be able to judge anything for yourself, know how to take care of yourself, know how to navigate the economic landscape, how to navigate relationships with other people, and to be able to basically become the entrepreneurs of their own lives. That's our aim. So it's got a very rigorous and specially designed liberal arts program, which includes science, mathematics, literature, economics. And then every year, the student will have a real world project that they'll be doing in an area of their professional interest. We'll connect them up with mentors that are experts in that area. They will have to figure out a problem in their area of professional interest and then try to research and come up with a solution to that problem and implement it. And in this way, they could do 4 different professions over the 4 years, or they could do the same one. And the idea being that this way they get some real world experience. They get to network with people in the field. They get to see what is this profession like, because there's a lot of people who go to college, they major in something, and then they leave college and they really don't like the work for that major. Or the major isn't useful in many ways because in our economy these days, it's constantly changing. You have to be very nimble at switching from job to job and being able to learn new things. So a person who's expert at learning will succeed very well by being able to change jobs when it's necessary.
I think this is such a lost art because I left the proprietary industry, I think it was about 2009. Well, got back into it for a little bit in 2011 and 12, but 2009 is when things really changed. There was a lot of politics involved from the government that really came in and almost obliterated this industry. And I understand some of the reasons. I'm not going to get political about it. However, there's an entire group of people that really were thriving in that industry, and it's gone almost. There were so many colleges, and now you have people who really, the traditional college university where you go, you sit down, you stare straight ahead, you insert. I almost look at it as open up your head, let me dump a whole bunch of information, close it, and then be tested on it. And there's other kids who it's hands-on. They need their hands. They need real-world applications. They need the projects like you're talking about. And those people that think that way and learn that way, traditional universities and colleges, like my son is one perfect example of that. If I could get him into another school like that, he would already have his bachelor degree. But he's tried the traditional route, and it was just overwhelmingly horrible to him. And so I love that you are starting a school like that because it is so necessary. And so thank you for that. I know it's a lot of work.
Well, I've seen how successful it was with our students in our week-long summer program that we started in 2009. From the first, I put everything I knew about optimal education. See, in the Montessori system, we don't just think about what academic subjects are we trying to get across to the students, are we trying to get them to learn. We think about the entire learning environment, the physical environment. How does the physical environment impinge on the way in which you're learning in the classroom? How does the social environment? What about the psychological side of it? All of these things. And so I took that philosophy up to the college level and figured out what kinds of programs, what kind of classroom activities, what kind of outside of classroom activities should we have connected to what we're doing in the classroom to help the students become very independent and excellent at their reading and reasoning and be able to judge anything for themselves and connect with their learning in the classroom with what goes on in the world. Because one of the deficiencies I find in a lot of education is you learn about all kinds of ideas, but do you know how those ideas affect you when you're living?
Mhm.
And are you choosing which ideas you are accepting and following, or are you just absorbing them and being influenced by them without even knowing about it?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we very much emphasize to be highly self-aware about yourself, the way you're acting, the way you're interacting with other people, and on whatever ideas that you're examining.
Well, I think that you mentioned on one of your intake forms that you teach people how to think, not what to think. And
Mhm.
that I think is such a skill. Again, I have a child that is on the autism spectrum, and it's, Mom, what do you think? What should I do? What? And it's like, no, no, no. Let's talk about what do you think? And I think that critical thinking skills are so important that we as a society need to do better to say it's okay to have your own opinion. And especially in this world right now where it's like if you differ from somebody else, it's not a good thing, but it is a good thing. It is good to have diversity. It is good to have conversations. It's how do you handle it when you don't agree? That's the difference. And so um,
Exactly.
I love
Exactly.
that you're talking about that.
Well, you know what I was going to say before is I put everything I knew into this program, and we serve all different kinds of students in the program. Uh, but I was even surprised at the result because from the first year, I had most of the students telling me, I feel like my life has been transformed because now
Wow.
I can judge anything for myself. And that's continued all these years. And the students develop very close relationships with each other. It was interesting because we use a special form of seminar in all of our classes. It's a special form of what's called a Socratic or collaborative seminar. And one of the students who's now an engineer explained to me why it develops these very close relationships between the students. He says, because in class, the teacher in the class is not telling you, you all have a common text that you're reading or an object that you're looking at. And the teacher is not telling you what are the conclusions to take from this text. The teacher is guiding you and the other students in figuring it out for themselves by using reason and evidence and bringing you back to what does the text say and what does that imply. And you get to hear about all the different ways the other students in class are thinking about this same object that you're looking at, and different people approach it differently. So
Yeah.
you end up developing a kind of like a Swiss Army knife
Mhm.
of skills at looking at something that you're thinking about or you're judging.
Mhm.
And anyway, he said that what happened is you really get to know the other people's minds in the class in terms of what they're thinking about what you're reading. And he says, and then outside of the class, you get to know them in all these personal ways. So you end up knowing them probably better than anybody else you know.
That's true. Very good point. Well, let's talk about the business side of things because some people are like, I don't care about education, but it's very important. But let's talk about business. So, how are you getting your students?
hmm we have several different avenues that we're working on. We, of course, have social media platforms, all the different social media platforms that we're putting posts on that we think are valuable for other people to read. It might be about a recent article, it might be about some issue, it might be about our program emphasizes using the great books or what's called the classics because these books are the writers that have shaped our civilization, and they tend to be the really excellent thinkers. So they're important to know because you don't even realize how you're influenced by these writers. But when you read them and you learn about their ideas, you see their influence everywhere. And then you can choose, do I agree with this one or don't I agree with this one? What do I believe? What are my values and what do I want to go along with? What do I want to use in my own life? We might have posts about the great books and the thinkers of the great books and how they affect marketing or how they affect business, how they affect engineering.
Mhm.
And then we also have been advertising on various platforms. Um, we have a email outreach program that we're using in order to talk to interested parties. It might be educators or parents to get them to know about us. And I've been going on podcasts to get people to be more familiar with me.
Is it going to be online? Is it brick and mortar? Is it a combination of both?
It's going to be in person, definitely, because young people, they're
Mhm.
at the stage of development where they need a lot of in-person interaction
I
and they
agree.
need to learn how do you work with other people. I mean, one of the advantages of the dialogue form of seminar that we use is that you're learning how to listen to what other people say and respond relevantly to them instead of just sitting there thinking about what you want to say and saying that next.
Mhm.
Because if you're working on a team, you need to be knowing how to interact and hear how the other person on the team understands the problem that you're working on or how to get the solution. So this is an amazing skill. Oftentimes it's called active listening
Yeah.
and learning how to articulately say what you're thinking. That's the other one of the other important pieces in it.
Well, and I
So
think nowadays our kids are so used to staring at a screen and having conversation like we're talking, but it really is different when you're face to face in person where you can smell the other person, you can touch them. I mean, there's so many other things that are involved. So I think that that's great.
yes, and you get to know them outside of this one interaction,
Mhm.
this in-class interaction, you know. So
You mentioned that you have a summer session. So talk to us about that.
yes, this summer session is the one that I started in 2009. It's a week-long program. We're at the campus of the University of Illinois in Chicago.
Mhm.
It's a mixture of very rigorous seminars talking about various texts. This summer, our theme is reason and free will. So the texts are related to that theme, but they're across the domains of knowledge, from poetry to science. And and the reason for that is that way the students learn to think about any kind of subject and to reason well about any kind of subject. And then it also involves activities, fun activities like improv games, with
Nice.
play with each other. Chicago is known as a center of architecture, and so they learn a bit of history about the city of Chicago, why it's in the shape that it's in, and we go on an architecture walk, and then I send them on a scavenger hunt where they have to find different locations in the city. And I bring in very accomplished professionals to talk about how they got into their career, why they love it, what it's like, and then let the students ask them a lot of questions. And we do other things like we'll go to the beach in the middle of the week. A lot of people don't realize it, but Chicago has 29 miles of beach on Lake Michigan. So it's quite beautiful. And at the end of the week, we go to a comedy club to see how professionals do improv comedy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask, because you said it, why is Chicago shaped the way that it is?
Well, it's here because of the Chicago River.
Mhm.
The trade can come from Europe all the way down the St. Lawrence through the Great Lakes to the Chicago River, over to the Illinois River to Mississippi and down to New Orleans.
Wow.
That's why we're here. Chicago's people, it was originally a scrubby beach
Mhm.
uh, on on Lake Michigan, and it's just had so much work done to it. They literally raised the city 20 feet in the 1890s. They put in 29 miles of beach. They put in a tremendous park system. There's a famous architect named Daniel Burnham
Mhm.
who created the layout of the of the World's Fair in 1893, which was hugely successful. Something like 600 million people came to visit it in 1893.
Wow.
And that the City Club of Chicago hired him to make a plan of Chicago, and that's been being implemented ever since then. Yeah.
Amazing. See, I love things like that. And I don't think Chicago, it is a gorgeous city, and I don't think that enough people know about it and what it offers. And especially if you're having a college that you're building there, people need to be able to come and learn about it. That's such a great program that you're offering.
Yeah, that's July 26th to August 2nd this summer. And we're taking applications at our website, reliancecollege.org/seminar. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested. And the our deadline is going to be June 15th for applications.
Okay. And how many people go to that?
We could get up to 30 at a
Okay.
time. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very hands-on and individual. So
So when it comes, because obviously you deal a lot with parents, I want you to imagine yourself. We're going to switch gears for a second because I know our time is almost up. But I want you to imagine sitting on a park bench and a 9-month pregnant woman comes and sits next to you. It's the first time mom. And you think about the first time that you had a baby and placed in your arms to the time where you are today. What is one piece of advice that you would give that new mom, if it could be anything?
Don't be surprised that no matter how much you prepare yourself for the experience, it's going to be different than what you imagine. And it's going to challenge you in ways that you never realized. But you can do it. You can learn what you need to learn. And the it's a hard job, but the outcome is very rewarding. When you see your children grow and what they become, it's quite um, satisfying.
I love that. And I think that don't be surprised when you have another one and they're not like the first one. And so
Yes, right, right.
you have to start all over again. And then the third one's even different.
They're very individual.
Yeah.
And that's something, it's funny because I don't know about you, but I remember before I had my first child, I just had an abstract idea of baby. But when the baby comes out, they're very much their own person right from the beginning, right? Unique personality.
That whole debate, nature versus nurture, it's definitely both of them, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're very much both of them. Well, I appreciate you coming on so much, Marsha. I love education and I love that you're doing this because it really is so needed and I really wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And moms, education is important. And whether it be continuing education so that you're the best in your industry or you're knowledgeable about your industry or going and getting a formal education, it is so important. And I hope that you listen to what Marsha had to say and know that learning to make sure that you're thinking for yourself and not what somebody's telling you is key because it is really important. So go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.